for the program or for the department should be 1:20. So these are the pre-visit qualifiers. And with respect to the documentation that is to be maintained, we broadly categorize it into two parts. Part A, which is mainly the institutional information. Part B is program specific information, which is laid out into 9 criteria. Again, though they say program specific information 9 criteria, 8 and 9 is mainly the institutional information. So I have clearly laid out in my PPTs the details that you need to maintain with respect to each and every criteria here. So first we will look into the institutional information. So institutional information, if you look into the NBA evaluation guidelines, they have given out these list of institutional files, I1 to I17. So this is the list of institutional files that you got to maintain. Again, a set of them here is an overlapping with program specific information. So if you look into the institutional information, the land papers, built-in plans, that could be one of the file, followed by all the committees that you had. Previously, Dakshani madam has spoken about the various committees that need to be there. So with respect to that, each and every committee, what is the structure, how are you disseminating the rules or policies of each committees, the MOMs that you would have recorded for each and every meeting of that governing body. So the composition of these academic administrative bodies, the second file. The third one is the rules, policies that is being published. It could be the rule book that you're giving out for the UGPG programs, or it could be the service policies, service records. These policies that you're taking up as an institution need to be published for transparency's sake. How are you making this accessible? Are you publishing it in the website? Are you publishing it in the form of a handbook? How frequently are you changing your policies? The complete transparency has to be maintained. So in this file, you are maintaining records with respect to the rules and policies that you are refining and introducing. The next file is with respect to the budget allocation. For the institution, what is the budget allocated? For each department, what is the budget allocated? How exactly are you utilizing the allocated budget? The complete audit statements to be maintained in the next file. Then with respect to the next I5, that institutional file 5 is an informative website. So in your website, are you publishing the events, upcoming events? Are you publishing the program outcomes, information about the faculty, the infrastructure, the distinguished laboratories that you have, center of excellences? So how well informative you are keeping your website, and how frequently are you updating your website? So all these things can be maintained in the next file. The next one is the library resources, mainly the central library. We have each and every department will have a departmental library, but this I6 is mainly about the central library, the college library that is there, with respect to the ambience, with respect to the the UG section, the PG section, and what is the digital library facilities that you are providing? How many subscriptions do you have? Do you have any professional subscriptions like QEEE? All these things to be listed. And what about the library staff? How qualified are your library staff? The librarian? All these details can be maintained in this institutional file. Then I7, the list of core computing and manufacturing labs. So if you have some core computing labs that has been set up, like with respect to our department, high performance computing lab is set up, then NVIDIA lab is being set up, and IBM lab, Cisco lab. So likewise, a list of all the core computing labs that has been set up for the department or at the college level, because this is an institutional file. The major core computing laboratories, maybe the major devices procured, infrastructure that has been enhanced with respect to lab, These things can be maintained in this I7. The next one is with respect to training and placement, career and career guidance. So here all the institutions have a placement department. So with respect to the placement department, the records may be how many companies are visiting, what is the maximum cutoff, each year-wise records about how many students are placed, what is the average package that is being highest, lowest packages. So these things can be maintained. Along with that, you can also speak about the career guidance, personality development program that is an initiative of the placement department for each and every program. So how well are you planning these personality development programs? You can also speak about the activities that are going on in your entrepreneur cell. So in the entrepreneur cell, you might have hackathons, or you might have motivational talks from the startup companies, the CEOs, motivating details about eCell, the career guidance and placements can be maintained in this in I8. In the next one, to this, like civil structure safety.
Madam.
Then, yes, sir.
Audio ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಅದೇನು ನೋಡಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಡಿಯೋ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Sir, I'll just try to shift it to another place.
Yes, you are losing some important information.
Sir, ಕೇಳಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಈಗ? Am I audible now?
ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹಾಗೆ ಕಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫ್ಯೂ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ತಿರ್ಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ಹಂಗೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಆದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ನಾ ಬೇರೆ ಜಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಆಯ್ತು ಮೇಡಮ್, ಓಕೆ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ.
So we were speaking about I9, records of safety checks and critical installations. So fire extinguishers that you have maintained at in the department. So how are you going to handle the hazardous chemicals if at all there is a leakage? Is there proper ventilations that is being taken care of? With respect to the battery rooms, how exactly the fire extinguishers have been taken care of? So these are some of the safety checks that need to be documented appropriately with respect to the checks and critical installations. Then in the next file, we are maintaining about medical care records and usage of ambulance. So we know that all of us have a medical center in the college. So there, how exactly the first aid is being catered to for emergency conditions, and what is the medical center facilities like? Do you have a professional practicing doctor along with the suitable aid like nurse, and all these things can be recorded here. What are the facilities with respect to the medical center? Now being the pandemic, do you have an isolation ward? All these things would be recorded in this file. And the next one is academic calendars, schedule of tutorial and makeup classes. So this again, we have an academic monitoring committee and academic council, which mainly speaks about before the beginning of the academic year, you will actually look into the academic calendar, the sequence of events, start of the semester, the schedule of tests and quizzes that need to be happening. And then any other events, like let's say some fest that you have tried to accommodate in the semester, or some project evaluations that happen, or some hackathons. So whatever activities that you have planned for the academic year, the appropriate calendar, is it being released much ahead of time? The tutorial classes, though it is there in the timetable, that much of infrastructure has been facilitated with the number of faculties and rooms. So these are the kind of information that you need to record in this file. The next one is I12, that is handouts, files along with outcomes, listing additional topics to meet. So already we know that we need to map our topics to the outcomes and try to attain the program outcomes. So here, when we are missing out on some outcomes, you need to try to identify the gaps and come up with something that you can impart beyond the content or beyond the curriculum, so that you can meet up those outcomes that you missed on the previous year. So how are you trying to accommodate those additional topics? Are you trying to provide them as a seminar? Are you going to tell them to attend a short-term training program? Or is it through some paper publication? So how have you identified these additional topics to be catered and delivered to? So these things can be recorded in this one. Then again, the I-13, I-14 and I-15 is something very specific to the department or the program, but still they have listed under the institutional files. So the set of question papers, assignments and evaluation schemes. This could be maybe the semester end examination question papers, but assignments and their evaluation schemes is again the internal things. But the question paper file that we maintained can map to this I-13. The set of internal and external question papers, the assignment topics that you give, the rubrics that you employ to assess your assignments, and how frequently are you assessing? Maybe phase 1 evaluation of assignment, phase 2 evaluation of assignment. These are the things that need to be documented. And next you have the feedback form. So we have a system for collecting feedback from the students. This happens twice per semester, one during the mid semester and one during the end semester. Whatever feedback that you collect during the midterm would be analyzed. If there is any constructive feedback that is being given, we try to improve upon that and try to cater to the feedback or try to build upon the weakness and try to facilitate so that the improvement is seen in the final feedback that you collected. So this is the feedback that you're trying to collect from the students. The analysis of the feedback, if there is a concern, if there is a constructive feedback, what are the corrective measures that you have handled? And these corrective measures need to be reflected in the end semester feedback. So these things can be documented in I-14. And then you have I-15, that is documented feedback received from stakeholders. Now, stakeholders, we have two different types of stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders, we can think about students, faculty, these are all internal management, all these are internal stakeholders. External stakeholders are parents, alumni, then employers, then we have R&D and industry professionals. These are all external stakeholders. So on a timely basis, we do collect feedback from all the stakeholders, and these feedback that has been collected have tried to revise or helped us to revise the outcomes, program outcomes and program educational objectives. So these documentation of all the survey forms, I have also kept a survey form as a sample to be shown to you all. That will come later. So how are you collecting the feedback? On what different ways are you trying to collect feedback? Is it on POs? Is it on PEOs? So different survey forms to be collected, and what is the frequency? All these things can be documented in this I-15. Then we have I-16, the teachers who teach first year faculty and their qualification. This is a list of faculty for 3 years. So any document that we are putting up as a file need to be kept for 3 years. So this is the list of faculty teaching the first year along with your qualification for 3 years. And the last one is results of the first year students. Have they cleared? How many have taken admission? How many have cleared without any backlogs? And these analysis can be kept in this file. So these are the 17 list of files that the NBA has given from institutional perspective. Next, we move on to the program specific information. The program specific information is given under 9 criteria. So each criteria we will take up in detail. So this is criteria 1, which is speaking about vision, mission, and program educational objectives. So we know that vision is a broader futuristic statement that the department and institution will think about achieving in some longer period of time, and mission is a means for achieving mission. So this particular criteria is for 75 marks, and this is the distribution of marks what I have put in parenthesis. So vision and mission 5 and the PEOs 10 and so on. We will take up each sub-criteria in detail. Now, the first sub-criteria, vision and mission, how exactly are you going to come up with a proper mission statement or a vision statement? Now, this has to be in line with your the department vision mission. So, if I am speaking about my PG program, the vision and mission should be in line with the department vision mission. So, and this vision mission in turn should be in line with the institution's vision mission. And how are you disseminating this information about vision mission? So it can be published in website, it can be published in the corridors where students can have a look at it on a daily basis. It can be published in the handbooks that you give out to students. It can be published in the syllabus copies that you give it to students, so that they are aware about the vision and mission of the department. How have you come up with the articulation process? So there is a committee which will actually draft vision and mission and for approval. So Dakshayani madam, I think she has spoken about advisory committee, academic advisory committee. So it will be giving any revisions or any improvements that you need to do on the vision mission statements. And finally, when it is approved, you can keep it into the BOS, Board of Studies committee. And later on, it will be approved by the academic council. So the files that you need to make here is wherever you are publishing your vision mission statement, let it be handbooks. I have mapped the P files. P files are specific information that the PG NBA evaluation guidelines has given out. So it has a set of 31 P files. So most few of the P files you see are overlapping between criteria, but what you need to document and file, I'll be telling for each sub criteria, and appropriately the mapping of P files also is given in this column. So the second sub criteria is program educational objectives. Again, for each, let's say for PG CSE program or PG CNE program, we will be writing our own program educational objectives, because program educational objectives is some broader statements that you're giving out for students' career and professional achievements that you are preparing the students to do. So these program educational objectives, how are you going to, first of all, articulate or come up with program educational objectives? Now, these laid out program educational objectives should be based upon the input that you collect from the stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So the information or the data that you collected from the stakeholders, the inference that you draw out of the stakeholders, along with all these inputs, you are coming up with the program educational objectives. Once you come up with the program educational objectives, again, you are keeping it for approval to the advisory committee. So all the minutes that you record for your program educational objectives, for the approval of your program educational objectives, can be kept as a proof in your file. So MOM of academic advisory committee, MOMs of BOS, Board of Studies, and minutes of your academic council approving program educational objectives can be proof. Along with that, whatever surveys that you have collected and inputs that you have collected to come up with this draft PEOs, these are all the proofs that you can document and file as a part of your 1.2 sub criteria. And this also includes how are you making it aware to your internal stakeholders, that is to the students. So again, you can publish it in the website for PG CSE. If you have a separate page, you can publish your POs and PEOs in that page. And you can also publish it in near their classrooms and corridors, and to make them aware about these program educational objectives. And your PEOs are supposed to be in line with your mission and vision. So a mapping of that can also be provided. So here the P file that we can map is the stakeholders involvement in the process of improvement for POs and POs. So all the survey forms that you're going to collect. So these are the proofs or documents that you can maintain for this sub criteria. Then attainment of program educational objectives. Here you can map your course to program outcomes, and these program outcomes will be mapped to the program educational objectives and how they are contributing to achieve your program educational objectives. This mapping can be kept as proof for this criteria. Then you have assessment of attainment of program educational objectives. So again, you are trying to look into how to what extent the POs have been achieved based upon the surveys that you got, based upon the direct assessment, indirect assessment, and the evidence is in the form of what is the expected level, has it been achieved or not. So the P files that you can map is your correlation outcomes with POs, stakeholder involvement, that is in the form of survey forms, and the collected forms. I'll try to show you the survey forms. So is the screen visible? Hello, is the screen visible? The alumni survey form is visible?
No, madam.
Yes,
no.
yes.
Actually seeing your slides.
No, alumni survey form I have projected now. Is it visible?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay, one second. Now I think it is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the alumni survey form, what we have, what we will be collecting from the alumni meets that we conduct during the, we have department alumni meet and institutional alumni meet. So we have two levels of alumni meet. One is centralized college level, and the other one is at the department level. So when we have alumni coming to the college also, we collect these surveys with respect to program educational objectives. So how well, because they would have gone through the program, how well this program educational objective has been met and things like that. And also when you go to industry, maybe for internship evaluations, and when you go to industry for industrial visits, or the placement department, when they are conducting, the employers can give their reviews with respect to the program educational objectives. So these are some of these survey forms that we have designed. I put only a sample of alumni and industry survey forms. So such survey forms you can create, and you can collect inputs from them, which will help you in refining the survey forms, which will help you in drafting the program educational objectives. So that is about survey forms. Okay. So this is your consistency of POs with mission. Whenever you're drafting your POs with the mission, you need to ensure that your POs are in line with the mission statement. So whatever mission statement, we have 4 mission statements, and we are trying to correlate it with the level of 3, that is low, medium, and high. So how well your PO1 maps to mission 1 statement, mission 2 statement, and mission 3 statement. This is consistency of your program educational objectives with mission. This map can do it, and you can also take inputs from the advisory committee whether this educational objective is mapping at the scale of high to mission 1 statement and things like that. And curriculum components, I also spoke about POs being mapped onto the curriculum components. So in your, let's say you have a scheme of 2018 scheme, there, how many core subjects are there? How many elective subjects are there? How many subjects are there with respect to objectives? So this mapping also can be done. And finally, based upon the weightage, you can calculate the survey that you have collected for all the POs that you have drafted out. So this is for 1.4. And when you want to redefine based upon all the inputs that you get, you are analyzing the feedback and then drafting or revising, and that is kept on to your academic advisory committee, and then it will be revised or it will be accepted. So this is all about criteria 1. So next we come to the second criteria. Okay. So again, the second criteria is for 225 marks. So you can see the split up of the second criteria here, and each one is again taken in detail. So the first one is definition and validation of course outcomes and program outcomes. So each and every course, like let's say in network engineering, we have advances in computer networks course. So for that course, we will list out the course outcomes. Likewise, for every subject or every course, you can list the course outcomes, 4 course outcomes or 6 course outcomes. We have seen it is apt to keep 4 course outcomes. So, but a few of the institutions also go up till 6 course outcomes. So that is up to the decision of the department or institution. So listing all the course outcomes and program outcomes is what you need to document. Along with that, how are you disseminating your course outcomes and program outcomes to the stakeholders? So disseminate anyway there on the website, near the classrooms or through question papers of test and quiz. You can provide a mapping of each question, what course outcome you can map, so that the student is also aware about, okay, this is course outcome 1 question and all that. And each and every question paper, we make it a point that we are putting course outcomes at the end of the question paper, so that the dissemination process is being met. And periodically, we'll have to also see that POs are in aligned with the graduate attributes. So if at all there is some refinement that you can do, so that you can bring it closer to the graduate attributes, that refinement that you that can be done, and the correlation of your POs to PEOs. So here the files that you need to maintain is again the syllabus copies, because we are having the course outcomes in the syllabus copies, and the program outcomes, which are again there in the syllabus copies. And with respect to the P files, it is curriculum, that's the syllabus books, POs, mission and vision. These are all there in the website handbooks that you give out to students. And how are you correlating outcomes with POs? I just now happened to show you in the previous criteria. How are you mapping program outcomes to program educational objectives? So that mapping you can do, and you can just give it for the academic advisory committee to see if there is any betterment that can be done. And then attainment of program outcomes. So once we have the course outcomes and program outcomes, we are trying to map our course outcomes to the program outcomes. And this mapping basically includes different course delivery methods. So it could be the direct assessment methods or the indirect assessment methods. Direct assessment methods are the regular test quizzes that we have, 3 tests per semester, 2 quizzes per semester, or if the faculty has been given the autonomy of assessing through some extra additional surprise tests, all these things, then evaluation of assignment, the self-study topics, what is the rubrics that you employ to evaluate your assignment and self-study topics, and the projects that you evaluate, how are you reviewing the project progress through different phase evaluations, how many phases are you reviewing the project progress. All these things will lead to the attainment of program outcomes. In turn, this will be mapped to your PEOs. So proof will be each and every course coordinator who is handling the course will maintain a course file comprising of the lesson plan, what he has planned to, how he has planned to deliver the course. Is it having a blended approach? What blended approach is it employing? Is it through some partial delivery? Some industry person is coming and taking up a part of your topic, and once the industry person has delivered that part, you will do an assessment on how effective it was. So all these things will be recorded in the lesson plan. Then all the question papers, internal and external question papers, the sample answer scripts, best case, average case, and the poor case, and some samples of the assignments, the rubrics for the assignments, then project reports, the list of laboratory programs, the laboratory programs mapped to the course outcomes and program outcomes. And with respect to the project work, we have maintained one file which keeps complete details about the project, starting from the guide allocation till the project report part. And this project part I will be taking up in the later criteria. Here it is only the phase evaluation, the rubric for each phase that you need to maintain. I will show you the course file index so that can you see the course file index visible? I think.
Hello?
Sir, course file index is visible?
Yeah, it has come, madam.
Yes. So this is the course file index what we. So every semester the faculty is handling a course. The complete details about the course will be documented at the semester end. Here the complete details about the course will be recorded, starting from the timetable, the syllabus, the lesson plan, the delivery approach that I just now mentioned, the teaching aids, if you're having some partial delivery kind of approach, those things can be recorded here. The question bank, then the student list, the SCE papers, the self-study topics or assignment topics if you have mapped down to COs. What is the rubrics that you have employed for self-study or assignment topic? How many phases are you employing? Lab experiments, the rubrics for that, and the orientation for COPO. So every semester in the beginning, we will do an orientation class for the students with respect to course outcomes, program outcomes, and we will be maintaining the record that we have oriented the students towards the course outcomes and program outcomes. So that is this serial number, followed by the CIE question papers, the midterm faculty appraisal, and the attendance and marks. So we have the total number of classes attended and what is the class attended, average percentage attendance, then CIE marks, wherein the complete details about quizzes, tests, followed by assignment, phase 1, phase 2, everything in one Excel sheet. And that is also put in this file. Then self-study mark sheet, then course end survey. This is an indirect assessment that we do. Course end survey will be given at the end of the semester, wherein you will be recording what is the improvement, what was the expectation of the student from the course, is it satisfactory or is there any scope of improvement, that can be recorded here. Once you take the course and survey, you will be drawing the inference for this course and survey, and that is also recorded here. And since this file is being done at the end of the semester, you will also map the course outcomes to the program outcomes, and the attainment of your course outcomes and program outcomes is also recorded, along with the faculty appraisal. The feedback that the student is given for this course to the faculty is also recorded. So this is a sample of the course file that we are maintaining, and this can be kept as a proof to that criteria. And I will also show you the COPO attainment. This is a sample of one particular course, database management system, So for the second criteria, you need to list the course outcomes. So this is the course outcomes of the database management systems course and course achievable matrix. That is, in each course, let's say database management system, we will have 5 units. This is the 5 units. Each unit or each chapter will have a set of topics that will map to course 1, course 2, course 3 and course 4 outcomes. Sorry, outcome 1, outcome 2, outcome 3 and outcome 4. Course outcome 1, 2, 3 and 4. So you are mapping this and you are calculating what is the total COs entirely for the database management course. Once you have done that, what is that achievable for course outcome 1 for this particular course can be recorded. After that, you can each and every question paper also have mapping each question to the course outcome.
Sorry
Sir?
to disturb you.
Yes, sir.
Madam, that number, can you give some information about what is the number here?
This number, sir?
Units 118 you written, na?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, when you take up the
CO
syllabus,
118.
yes, sir, I'll tell you that, sir. So in each unit, you have a set of topics. Like let's say introduction to database. Now introduction will come as a part of CO1. So every topic in that unit will be mapped to course outcome 1, course outcome 2, course outcome 3 and course outcome 4. How many topics you are 26, 28 topics. Depending upon how you have drafted the syllabus, each topic will be mapped to the course outcome. And each topic can be decided whether it is at the level of, whether it is mapping to understanding, here is the course outcome, understanding, analyzing different models, designing relational models, implementing. So if a topic is simply discussing understanding the fundamentals of database, that topic will be to course outcome 1. Like that, out of 28 topics that is listed under chapter 1 of your syllabus, you are mapping to which course outcome that topic belongs to and taking a sum of the course outcome here. Sir, am I clear?
It means, madam, there are 18
Yes,
topics in the unit 1 which come under understanding.
Yes, sir. Yes, exactly.
The
That's
number is the topic that is identified.
Topic, yes, sir.
Oh.
Yes, sir, topic. So like this, we do it for all the 5 units and we will try to come up with the achievable matrix. Total COs that can be achievable. So this is 31 divided by 86 into 100. What is the percentage of CO1 that can be achieved with respect to database management course? This is your achievable matrix for the syllabus that we have framed. And for this achievable matrix, you are trying to set question paper for test 1, test 2 and test 3. Each of our tests in the department, it is comprising of 2 parts, quiz and a test. So here again, what is the maximum marks allocated for each question, followed by what is the mapping. Now question number 1 of the quiz is 1 mark and it is mapping to CO1. Like question number 7 of the quiz is maximum marks is 2 marks and it is mapping to CO2. If you take the test part, 5th question, sub question A, 5A is maximum marks 7 and it is mapping to CO4. Depending upon what complexity you are mapping to these 4 course and you are trying to avoid this mapping. So this is the question number. This is the maximum marks awarded for each question. This is the CO mapping for each question. Likewise, we do it for all the 3 tests, CIE1, CIE2 and CIE3. Once you have done this mapping, the student will take up the test and he will score the marks. These are recorded here. Now, this is a sample of 5 students wherein their test 1, test 2 and test. For each student, you have 3 rows. That is the marks scored by that student for test 1, test 2 and test 3, the 3 rows that are there. It is purely what we have evaluated based upon the scheme and those marks have been tabulated here. And then we calculate the course outcome for that student. How much of CO1 has he scored? How much of CO2 has he scored? Once you come up with the course attainment for the course, you can map the course outcomes to your POs. The CO to PO mapping will be there, and PO attainment we have calculated like this. We have given the weightage 0, 1, 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. So if it doesn't map, we have given it 0. So if it is low, 1, if it is medium, 2, if it is high, 3. So that weightage with what course outcome has been achieved and the summation of the course outcomes. So that will give you the program outcome attainment, PO attainment. So this is being tabulated here. And finally, this is whatever we discussed for test and quiz is only the direct PO attainment. Direct PO attainment includes the lab test that you conduct, the assignment evaluation that you conduct, the quiz evaluation and assessments that you conduct, test evaluations and assessments that you conduct. These are all direct attainment. Indirect attainment also has to be considered. These are through course and surveys and other surveys that you conduct. So direct attainment is given a weightage 80%, indirect attainment is given a weightage 20%. Together you will get PO attainment for that particular course. So once you look into this PO attainment, if you feel there is a shortfall, now you can see here this is 40% least, PO7. If you want to improve on this, you can try to identify some or some workshop or some activity which will map to PO7, and you can include that activity as a plan for the coming. So that is what CO-PO attainment is all about. Complete details about this, I think Sir Nagaraj sir will be speaking in the next session. So this is a brief overview about how PO attainment can be done. So we'll get back to our PPT. About attainment of POs. So you need to correlate your COs to POs. So we have done this mapping of COs to POs, and then we have mapped the delivery methods. So direct delivery or partial delivery. So all these things have been planned. So every time we will have some expert lectures or invited lectures as a part of the course. And most of the times, 70 to 80% of the times, partial delivery will be there, where industry person will come and take up a part of the syllabus, and he or she will be delivering that content, and then assessment on that content will be done. So these partial delivery approaches are more effective because industry personnel will be teaching from the perspective of practical applicability. So these are all involved to see that the program outcomes are attained better. So documents that you need to maintain is, one is your course file. So I showed you the course file index there. And along with that, the rubrics that you would have laid out for assessment of assignments and projects, theses, all these things also can go as the proofs for your files. So these are the P files, course outcomes with POs, correlation of course outcomes with POs, the mapping for all the courses to program outcomes. That is one file. Then the second file is about course files. So this completes whatever course file index we had listed. So the plan of delivery and all these things. And the last P file is sample, best and average project reports. So here, because it is also speaking about the project work contribution towards attainment of POs, the sample, best and average case project reports also can be maintained as proof. The next criteria is assessment of attainment of program outcomes. So here we will be speaking about the direct and indirect attainment. How frequently are you assessing the direct attainment and indirect attainment? Indirect is generally once per semester, but direct is quizzes will happen thrice in a semester or twice in a semester, depending upon how you have defined your evaluation. Tests will happen 3 times per semester in our department. So that frequency and rubrics that you have developed to evaluate all of these. So this one, expected attainment, I just now took the example of DBMS. This is the one. And then indicate how results of assessment of achievement of POs have been used for redefining. I told you for one of the program outcome, it was 40%. So if you want to improve upon that, you will try to identify some topic on that and try to deliver it as a part of learning content beyond the syllabus. As a part of content beyond the syllabus, you can identify some gaps that you have seen to make your PO attainment better, and try to bring that to the notice of advisory committee, take their approval, and then implement it in the next academic year. So this is how you can refine your attainment. And if you want to somewhere relook and redefine POs, again, you will have to take inputs from the stakeholders and try to redefine your POs so that they are brought in line with your graduate attributes. So this is about the second criteria. Next, we move on to the program curriculum. So this is a total of 75 marks with a split up of 15, 40, 5, 10, and 5. So each criteria we'll be discussing again here. So this is your curriculum. So here we are going to discuss the structure of curriculum. Structure is basically how many lecture hours you have, how many practical hours you are having, how many tutorials, or how many self-study. So LTPS, what is the ratio of lecture, tutorial, practicals, and self-study? So that structure along with the curriculum components. Curriculum components are basically the humanities, or the elective courses, the global electives that you have, or the core subjects. So how is your laid out? That is your 3.1. So proof for this could simply be your syllabus books that you would have accommodated for different schemes. And this structure, how is it helping you in attainment of POs and POs? Sorry? I didn't get
ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Okay. Of 3.1. So 3.1 is mainly the curriculum. So record of all the syllabus books can be the proof for this particular criteria. And the P5 is improvement in curriculum. Let's say I've taught computer networks course, and in the next coming scheme, I want to improve on the curriculum to make the PO attainment better. So what are the new topics that I want to add onto the networks course? So that I can indicate as a proof for this particular criteria. So that is P28. Then indicate interaction with industry and R&D organizations. So here the various files that we have maintained, I have listed here. These are the P files. So generally the involvement of industry and R&D organizations in the program. So we have industry representatives in our Board of Studies committee. So they are involved in framing the syllabus for us. They also come to deliver partially the courses, and we have a few industry attached laboratories. So what are the facilities that they have created in industry attached laboratory? Who are the Board of Studies members? And every time we try to frame a new syllabus, we try to take feedback from the industry. So with respect to curriculum development, how we have interacted, the proofs of all the email communications that go up asking for their inputs, and the R&D and consultancy work that is going on. So that is one file. So which maintains all the work orders and the completion certificates. Then all the MOUs that we have signed over a period of 3 years. So this is one more file. So also the industry personnel come to deliver expert lectures and handle workshops. So this is one more file, workshop file or expert lectures file that we have maintained. And we take students for industry visits. So visits with respect to maybe program specific industry, we take them. So all the mail communications that happen for an industry visit, along with communication from their end, and also the photographs that we take as a proof for that. So all these things can be kept as proof for indication of interaction with R&D and industry organizations. The next one is illustrate the process used to identify curricular gaps. So when you have identified the curriculum gaps in terms of attainment, so how are you going to cater to those gaps? So you have seen that PO7 was 40% for one of the course. So what professional society activity are you going to maybe if coding is not up to the mark in a particular course, you can try to conduct some hackathon or some coding competition. Try to bring up attainment in that particular program outcome. That you organize, the professional society activities like IEEE student chapter is there, where you can have expert lectures in various domains. So these are all the things that you need to maintain in order to identify the attainment and whatever curriculum gaps that you identify. So for that, you have a piece file that is 7, which records all the professional society activities, events, conferences that has been organized. Then indicating the content beyond syllabus imparted. So this is in terms of NPTEL courses or EduSat courses. This is because it is content beyond syllabus, or I mean, what extra self-learning are you trying to motivate to students? All these things will come in 3.4. The NPTEL maybe because the assignment is for 30 marks, you can take up CNA certifications or Coursera or NPTEL certifications so that or they can undergo some short-term courses or some course modules that can be developed. So all these things come as a part of your content beyond syllabus. So the proof that the student has undergone these content beyond syllabus that have been imparted, the NPTEL certifications, how well have they performed in terms of elite certificate or things like that can be recorded and kept as proof here. So the P file also says the same thing, list of short-term courses, workshops arranged, and course modules developed. Then the last module is course syllabi. It is simply the syllabus that you are handling. This is only 5 marks for the sub criteria. So whatever course syllabi that you are delivering in the classroom, that itself is the sub criteria. So the syllabus copies become the proof for this particular sub criteria. So this is about criteria 3. This is criteria 4. So this criteria is mainly about student performance. So what is the admission? So this is for 100 marks. What is the intake? How well are they graduating or without any backlogs within the minimum number of hours? Things like that has been assessed in this criteria. So admission intake in the program. So how are the seats getting filled through the regular process of CET, GATE? What is the cutoff GATE ranking? These things can be documented and kept as proof for criteria 4.1. And here the P file is also listed, that is admission, seats filled and ranks over the past 3 years. This is the P file. So you need to maintain through which approved procedure. Is it through CET? Is it through GATE? And what are the rankings that you have taken for admission? These things can be recorded. The success rate, here it is basically speaking about completion of a given student within the regular time. Now this regular and lateral entry is for UG course. We will ignore that. Now for PG students, there is no lateral entry. So if they are taking admission in their first year, within 2 hours, they are within 2 years, they are supposed to pass out without any backlogs. So if 18 is the intake, are all the 18 coming out in 2 years without any backlogs? So that is the success rate or success index that we can calculate. So this is the list of numbers who have cleared the program in 4 years. This is for UG, but for PG it is for 2 years. So this maintenance of records for 3 batches, how exactly the students have passed without any backlogs within that minimum period. Minimum period is 2 years for PG program. So within 2 years, these many students out of 18 admitted have cleared and have passed successfully. That index, this is the success index. So that has to be recorded in the file. And academic performance, what is the CGPA or what is the percentage, that average percentage with which the students are, let's say average percentage is 75 or average percentage is 80. So whatever is your average percentage for 3 years, you got to record that, and that is the proof for academic performance. So that is API, academic index performance. Then placement and higher studies. If 18 students have taken admission, how many students have got placed out of 18? And if there are few students who have not placed, how many students out of those have gone for higher education? Okay, and how many students not placed? So these records have to be kept in this 4.4. So this is about placement and higher studies. Then professional activities. So we have IEEE student chapter as a part of RVC. Like that, are the students members of this professional body? So what are the activities that is being carried out in your professional society? What how many publications or what awards are they receiving? Best paper award, or they might win hackathons, and entrepreneur initiatives. Like in entrepreneur initiatives also, some ESL activities like motivational talks or trainings with respect to entrepreneur cell, ESL. So all these things can be documented and kept. So the P7 and P8, the P files have been mapped here. So we have a student achievement file generally maintained in the department, which will keep track of the student paper publication, if they have achieved the best paper award, or if they have won and brought laurels to the department. All those things have been recorded, and those will be portrayed to the department. So that can be mapped to these P files. Then we have the fifth criteria, which is mainly the faculty contribution in terms of research, in terms of publication. So here we have the student teacher ratio, the qualification, everything into account. So this is again for 200 points. So these are the breakup that has been included. So 5.1 is student teacher ratio. This is the formula that they have given. N1 is the total number of faculties in the department. So you are calculating student teacher ratio with respect to the UG programs and the PG programs. So this is with respect to UG second year, third year and fourth year, how many students are there, and PG first year and second year. So total number of students by the number of faculty will give you the student teacher ratio. So this need to be calculated along with the faculty list. So you can maintain a file for that, speaking about the student faculty ratio for 3 years, and then the faculty strength in the PG program. So with respect to how many PhDs are available for the identified PG program. So based upon that, they've given this equation. This is the NBA equation for faculty strength in PG programs. How many PhD how many faculty with PhD qualification are available, and things like that. So here you have the P file, the listing along with the designation, joining date, all these things. So the next criteria is faculty qualification. So faculty qualification index is calculated like this: the number of PhDs, BEs and MTechs with the weightages given 10, 6 and 4 divided by the total number of faculties. So how many faculties have upgraded, or how many, depending upon the number of faculties, you can score more points here. So again, the proof for this is the list of faculty with your qualification and with their qualification, but this P file is having all the other details of faculty contribution also. Then the faculty competencies is in terms of some publications, good quality publications, their citations, and any short-term courses that the faculty is offering in the department, or any training programs that the faculty has given, short-term training programs. All these things come under this. So you can keep as proof the list of publications with citation details, and faculty interaction with the outside world, in terms of maybe you would have gone as BOE for other other institutions, that is as an examiner for BE project, MTech project, or you might be a part of the doctoral committee, or you might be a part of BOE, Board of Examiners, or you might be a part of the Board of Studies. So all these details is nothing but your faculty interaction with the outside world. These are all competencies that the faculty can provide. This is the proof for this one, the faculty competencies. And then you have faculty as participants. So faculty, if you are participating in a workshop or a training program, see that you have attended 5 days in the minimum, or 2 weeks. So anything above 5 days or 1 week is more appropriate, because for the calculations that they have portrayed in the evaluation guidelines, maximum points you will get only if the faculty is attaining 1 week and more. So if he has attended, then you can calculate the points. And also if he is gone as a resource person to the faculty development program, so that also can be articulated. So we have maintained a file, the workshop attended and delivered in the department for faculties separately and students separately. So this will act as the faculty file will act as proof here. So interaction with outside world also includes this workshop delivered. That is, as a resource person, you're going and delivering to the other institutions or organizations. So this is about the first 5. Next, you have faculty retention. How well are you able to retain your faculties? So for this, the proof is as per the P file, it is your service books, salary details, appointment letters, and all these things. But in the department, we maintain a personal file. The personal file consists of all these things, right? Starting from the appointment letter, all the salary details, the promotion letters, everything is included in the personal file. So that you can keep it as a file for this committee, this sub criteria. And this is how you are calculating the faculty retention. Retention point index divided by the total number of faculties. Then research publications, the list of publications in Scopus Q1, Q2, Q3, or the other journals, international and national journals, conferences. These lists can be maintained separately. Because it is a PG program, the main PG faculty that has been identified for the program, their research publications can be maintained separately, because mainly they will be coming to assess the PG program. So the strength with respect to the identified PG faculty can be taken into consideration, their publications along with their citation details. And intellectual property rights, faculty intellectual property rights, we have a patent file in the department. There is no P file for this particular sub criteria, but we do maintain a patent file for each and every faculty who has applied for the patent, whose patent has been published or whose patent has been approved. These are the 3 statuses that you have for this particular sub criteria. And then R&D and consultation work, you have a P file listing the R&D and consultancy project with approval and completion letters. Similar to this, we maintain a file which is called R&D file and consultancy file. So we file right from the starting communication, email communication that they provide for a particular consultancy or research project, their approval letters, the work order that they provide, the invoices that we have raised, and the completion certificates. So all these things will be filed. Along with that, the MOUs also we have maintained in a separate file. So all these 3 files can go as proof for this particular sub criteria. Then we have faculty interaction with the outside world. Faculty interaction with the outside world, it is the list of proofs that the faculty has interacted. So he would have been a member of committee for different colleges like BOE, BOS, and other committees. Maybe you would have gone as a member for NBA, mock NBA. All these things can be interaction with the outside world. Or you would have gone and done some open seminars for PhD students, or comprehensive vivas, MTech vivas, project vivas. So all these things come under faculty interaction with the outside world. So all these proofs, faculty wise, you can maintain and portray it to the committee. So next, these things are actually infrastructure committee will take care of. What is the classroom? What are the faculty rooms? What amenities that you provide to classrooms and faculty rooms? Then what is the equipment that you have procured for laboratories? The technical manpower, how skilled are they? So these are the 4 sub-criteria under 6 for a total of 75 points. So classrooms, mainly speaking about the room space and what teaching aids have you provided, the smart boards that you have installed, the projectors that you have provided, and acoustic speakers and things like that. So what is the teaching aids that you provided at the classroom? Along with that, what is the seating capacity and what is the intake or what is the student strength? All these things can be recorded in your as a proof for this sub criteria. So the P file is list of classrooms and faculty rooms. This is a common file which comes as a proof for both these sub criteria. And in faculty rooms also, it is about how best facilities have you provided. Have you given a system to the faculty? Is it provided with the internet facility? Then do you provide a blackboard or a whiteboard? Like, let's say if there is a student who's approaching the faculty for some doubt, he should be able to
Hello. Madam? Hello. 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 Hello?
Sir, I'm audible, right, sir?
Yes, madam. You go ahead, madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this is the seventh criteria. So the evaluation of seventh criteria mainly is about the direct assessment. So evaluation process for coursework. How are you going to evaluate your course? Is it in terms of quiz? Is it in terms of test? How frequently are you handling this? If at all you have an assignment, what is the rubric that you have taken for your assignment? All these things can be taken as a proof for the evaluation process. Along with that, performance and feedback. Now, when you have a test or giving the question paper, the students will write their test, and after that you would have evaluated. That is the performance. Now, the feedback is nothing but the scheme that you publish. So soon after the internal is gets over, the scheme of evaluation has to be published into the respective student notice board. So that is the feedback that you are giving. And along with that, when you are giving the internal paper to the student, you are discussing the scheme with them suitably and taking their feedback for that. Along with that, if you have a poor, slow learner or a poor learner, then handling remedial classes to him. After handling remedial classes, how has the performance improved? That analysis also can be kept as a proof for this one. Now, presentation and seminar. So seminar will happen, seminar evaluation will happen in two phases. Each phase, what is the evaluation that you do? Is it till literature survey? Is it till analysis? Or is it the implementation and final results? So for each phase, what is the rubric that you have laid out? Appropriately, all these things can be recorded as the proof and maintained. So the P file that maps is P25. That's the previous one we saw, the course files, the plan of course delivery and all these things only maps to this one. But over and above, you can keep the test schedule, test question paper, test scheme that you have provided, the remedial class timetable, and the student list of the who have registered for remedial classes for first test Then after remedial classes, what is the number of student list for the remedial classes? So that analysis, you can put it as a proof for this particular sub criteria. Then evaluation process for thesis. In the previous criteria, we only saw the best and average report, or best case and best project and average report samples only. But here the complete file, right from the starting of guide allocation. Is there transparency in allocation of guide? That has to be maintained along with the list of students and their respective guides. So we have a project coordinator identified in the department who will file for every academic year the complete details right from the start of guide allocation. Each phase we have evaluation committee with at least one external member. Now, external member can be somebody from ISE department. In your own institution, from ISE department, if one person is coming, you can say that it is there is no biasing in case of evaluation for project phase. So it is three members total in the committee, 2 internal members from the department, 1 is from an external department. So 3 phases will be evaluated. What is the rubric that you have laid out for each phase, and that also need to be communicated to the student, the rubrics to be evaluated, and the schedule for consistency review. So it is mentioned twice per semester. You can go ahead for 3 reviews or 5 reviews depending upon your requirement. So that is about the complete project details. Further, we have gone ahead and we have taken we have made a extract of all the abstracts that we have taken for each and every project, and we have published a Technonest. Technonest is an extract of all the project abstracts of that academic year. So every year we will have this being released. So if somebody wants to look into the project, they can then go to the department library and take a copy of the thesis. But if they are only interested in the reviews, only the Technonest can be given. So like that, you can show a complete step-by-step project evaluation process. Then teaching evaluation and feedback system. This I mentioned previously also. Students' feedback will be taken twice in a semester, and we have a committee which will look into this feedback. If there is a faculty who is getting feedback less than 60, it is comparative again. So based upon the highest feedback, a threshold will be kept saying that some faculty getting less than this need to be improved upon some factors of delivery. So if at all, let's say the threshold is 60 and there is a faculty getting less than 60, HOD will have a personal interaction with that corresponding faculty, and what went wrong, how it could be improved constructively, it will be taken up, and the faculty will be encouraged to do better in with respect to the obtained feedback. Then you have self-learning beyond syllabus and outreach activities. So beyond the syllabus, self-learning, you can assign, identify a particular assignment topic, or if you are giving some small project implementation, you can identify topics, something that is beyond the syllabus but related to the course, or you can ask the student to undergo some short-term training courses, or if you are trying to look into some certifications, NPTEL, EduSat, all these things can be taken as the content beyond learning syllabus. And next is, this is completely institution based, campus infrastructure organization. So this is for a total of 100 marks. So the first one is campus infrastructure and facility. So here you got to maintain infrastructure with respect to hostels, canteen, whatever amenities that you have provided at the campus. Transportation facility, internet facility, then medical medical shop, then you have a post office, bank, whatever amenities that you have provided with respect to each thing, what is the details, complete details, each file can be maintained. So this is at the institution level. Then all the governing body, that is the finance committee, the governing body, the administrative setup, all these can be included as the that I mean, for the, and then at the institution level, budget is allocated. For the specific program, what is the allocated budget, utilization, availability of the detail, I mean,
Madam, audio is not, is breaking. Audio is breaking.
this is
Hello? Audio is breaking, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hope it should not be a problem now, sir. I have shifted
Yeah,
to another place now. I'm sorry for all the technical features.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So next is the incubation facility. So if the department has any incubation facility that has been provided, you have provided space for some company, some collaborative efforts. So what is the setup that you have provided, and how is it catering to students' performance? So that is the incubation details that you can provide to this sub criteria. And next is internet. With respect to internet service providers, what is the speed that you have subscribed to? What is the security that you have provided? Firewall details. All these things can be provided as a proof for this sub criteria. Then safety and normal checks. We spoke about the firefighting measurements, and then hazard when there is a hazardous chemical leaks or something. How is it handled? Proper regulations that is being provided. All these things, all these security and normal. You have availability of a first aid kit, everything with respect to safety norms can be documented in file, and these can go as proofs for this criteria. Then counseling and emergency medical care. So is there a proper qualified counseling facility in the college? Like we have one faculty who's been identified in counseling, who has her master's and PhD in psychology. So if there is any critical issue with respect to counseling, so we can cater to that needs through the proper counseling through one of our qualified faculty. So that is the counseling facility that we have. And we have qualified professional doctors as a part of our medical center. So, and we have also have a medical center with ambulance and first aid boxes. All these things have been documented appropriately, and that is the proof for 8.9. So this is about the 8th criteria. The 9th criteria is about the continuous improvement. So we saw the success index. So this 9th criteria is for 75 marks. So this is all about the improvements that we have done in whatever we saw. Is there any improvement with respect to that? That can be taken up here in this criteria. So criteria 9 is basically improvement in success index. That is, we recorded success index is nothing but the total number of students who have cleared the program within the minimum years. That we saw in criteria 4. That is, if 2 years is the minimum period for the program, then how many students cleared within that minimum period without any backlogs? And do you see an improvement over a period of years, 3 years? That is to be documented here. Then average academic performance index compared to previous years, if your average CGPA of students has raised by 5% or something, Previously, average CGPA was 70%. Now it has come up to 75%. So you see an improvement there. These things can be documented as a part of 9.2. 9.3 is improvement in student-teacher ratio. So STR we calculated in criteria 5. So here, if there is an improvement in student-teacher ratio over a period of 3 years, then you can document these things and keep it as a proof for this sub-criteria. And enhancement in faculty qualification index, like let's say the number of PhDs have increased over a period of 1 year comparatively, then you can document that and portray it as a proof for 9.4. And consultancy work. The quality of papers have improved, citations have improved. So you can document that and portray it for 9.5. And the amount of consultancy and R&D works in terms of lakhs per year has improved. That also you can portray it as a part of 9.5. And continuing education, this is the short-term courses that the faculty would have taken up to upgrade their skills, to bring them in on par with the industry and impart those things to the students. How well have they gained their expertise can be documented. So every time we have a short-term course that a faculty attends, he will have to give a report how this is how lab can be brought in, can be appropriately implemented when you are framing the syllabus. So continuing education. New facility created, some new facility to the department, some HPC cluster or virtual reality device that you have procured. So any new computing facility or equipment that you procured can be portrayed as a proof for this one. And the NBA would have pointed out some strengths or weaknesses. And how well have you addressed these efforts? How well have you built upon those weaknesses? You turn your weaknesses to strengths. That can be portrayed as a part of your 9.8. So this is all about program specific information. Next is just the listing of your program out, which is your directly your graduate attributes. Any questions, sir?
Thank you, madam, for detailed highlighting of the various documents to be maintained. Now, participants, do you have any question to ask, madam? You can unmute and ask the question, or you can send your question in the chat box. That will be presented to the speaker. Madam, do you have any samples data to show it to us?
With respect to what, sir?
The various documents you are talking about.
Yes, sir. This is the workshop attended. Is it visible? I'll just show you 1 second. I think it is visible now.
Yeah.
This is the workshop attended document that I was speaking about. So along with the date and venue, how is it going to benefit in terms of outcome, and is it going to improve the existing course, or is it helpful in introducing the new course, or what outcome the facility the training will help you in achieving? All these things can be documented, and later on what happens is from these reports the inferences will be drawn out, and if there is a possibility of a new course that can be included, it will be introduced, or if an existing course can be improvised, accordingly steps will be taken up to incorporate in theory part or lab part. This is the workshop report that I was speaking about, and this is the rubrics, sir. This is for self-study evaluation. We have a component self-study wherein we give small problem statements to students, and they right from the requirement stage, they try to do the implementation. Till their implementation, we try to assess in different phases, and this is a sample of one of the rubric there, sir.
Okay.
Is it necessary we should have minimum percentage of
There
student
is one
admission?
question, madam.
Yes, sir.
Is it necessary we should have a minimum percentage of student admission to go for PG MBA? Is there any criteria, a prerequisite for MBA?
Yes, sir. For tier 2, I didn't see that prerequisite, sir. For tier 1, the number of GATE student is a prerequisite. So the number of admissions of GATE students is a prerequisite. But for tier 2, I didn't see that prerequisite, sir. I showed you the prerequisite in the very beginning, the first slide. So that shows only the, I'll try to share the content again now. This is for tier 2, wherein it says that the undergraduate program, relevant undergraduate program should have scored 650 marks, but otherwise it does not say anything about the percentage of student admission. But for tier 1, it speaks about the number of GATE students admitted to the program becomes a prerequisite also.
Okay. For tier 2, there is nothing like minimum admissions.
No, sir. No, sir.
Sir, Vijay Prakash, is the doubt cleared, sir? Now, what you have listed here is a prerequisite for tier 2, madam. Tier 2 or tier 1?
This is whatever I have highlighted in bold. These are all for tier 2. These ones are for tier 1.
That means the program should have at least 2 faculty with PhD qualification.
Yes. Yes, sir.
During the previous 2
It
years.
Yes. First requirement is there should be 2 faculty with PhD qualification. 1 PhD holder should be a professor, 1 PhD holder should be an associate. That's the next point of discussion. And also they should have expertise in the domain of the PG program, respective PG program.
Okay. So it means that it is apart from UG prerequisite. UG is separate, this is exclusively for PG.
UG is separate, sir. This is PG.
Exclusively for PG.
Yes, sir.
So these student faculty ratio should be 1:2.
1:20, sir.
Sorry.
1:20.
1:2.
1:20.
So any other questions from the faculty? I think there is no question, madam. I now request Dr. Vijay Prakash to conclude the session. So over to Vijay Prakash, sir.
Sir?
Sir, Vijay Prakash. So thank you, madam. Thank you for your informative talk about the documents to be maintained in the department. We will be in touch with you for further information.
Yes, surely, sir.
And your help is very much required as we progress into the MBA of PG program at BIT.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
We'll be contacting you in future.
Sure, sir.
Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So participants, we will be back at 1:30 for session 3 by Dr. Nagaraj GS about forming COs and mapping POs. Okay, so be back exactly at 1:30. We'll be starting the session at 1:30. You have break from 1 to 1:30. Okay, connect back at 1:30 p.m. Thank you.